should we do if our CR begins to show signs of depression? Great question. Cheryl? No.
Okay.
So this actually is, I think, a fairly complex answer, but I'll try to be fairly brief with it. It gets back to, I think, our basic training, which is active listening. That's the starting point. And I think it piggybacks a little bit on what Judy said, which is, and kind of what Cheryl's comment was about her interaction with her first care receiver, where we may see something that we think looks like depression. And if we come out right away and say, gee, you seem like you're depressed, that's not the way to go about doing that. The person may be sad, may have had something very terrible happen, but they may not be depressed. If we jump right in there and we start labeling what's going on, we could send the conversation very, very sideways. So we want to use our active listening skills to get some information. We've all learned what the signs of depression are. So what are some of the things that we look for to tell us that somebody's depressed? Changes in appetite, changes in sleep patterns, changes in activity, changes in, there are certain behavioral kinds of changes. So we want to be able to interact with our care receiver in such a way that we can get information from them and then start to feed back to them what they're saying to us. So you're not sleeping well. Tell me about how you're sleeping. Gather some information about that. So you're not eating well? Well, what are you eating? How often are you eating? We can, it's okay to ask those kinds of information or those kinds of questions to elicit that kind of information. If it becomes very clear that in fact the person is showing these signs of depression, then we want to kind of inquire about, well, tell me about some of these feelings of sadness or whatever else that they may be expressing. We of course want to, when we have the opportunity, discuss that with our supervision groups. But if it seems to be something that's pretty clear and you're at a point where you can sort of feed back then after engaging in that conversation, gee, it seems like you're really feeling bad. Would you say you're feeling depressed? It kind of sounds like that. After you've gotten enough information, then you can kind of be a little bit more direct in that kind of question. And if they say that, then you can explore what the options are. And there, as we know, there's a time to get mental health professionals involved. And if somebody is showing those kinds of signs of depression, that may be a time to go down that path and explore with the care receiver, getting a mental health professional involved. If there's already a mental health professional involved, then you want to find out, is this something you're talking with your therapist about? Who else knows about this? Have you talked with other people? So remember when we talked about suicide, we talked about the importance of a support group. Talking with your care receiver early on about depression, possibility of depression, you can start to establish, is there a support group around this person that could be utilized to help prevent that person from getting to that level of feeling suicidal? But it all starts with that conversation about really understanding what's going on and getting your care receiver to talk more about those kinds of symptoms or those kinds of things they're experiencing. Now, one of the classic signs of depression is this just occurred to me, is that oftentimes people don't feel like talking. So you may notice a change in your care receiver in that they're not talking as much. And that's something you can feed back to them. Or they may say, well, I don't really want to talk about it. So that's when you have to sort of leverage your relationship with them to really try to delve into that.
I would say too, you're looking for trends. We all know that our care receivers, and we have weeks that are better weeks than others. So if your care receiver has a week or two like that, that's one thing. If you're starting to see a trend where you're seeing these red flags, sometimes in some of my relationships, I will leave the meeting, and of course you'd never do this with your care receiver, but I may make a couple of notes to myself and say, you know what, I should just seem more down than normal, than the usual situational type thing. Then if I see that for 2 or 3 weeks later and I'm reviewing my notes before I go back to meet with her again, and I'm seeing that over and over, then those conversations are more appropriate. But yeah, sometimes it's just not a good week, but we all have those.
Right.
So yeah.
Cheryl, would you, in some of those cases, might you then just send a text in the middle of the week, a few days after you've met, and just said, hey, how you doing?
Yeah, thinking about you.
Yeah. That's a good opportunity to use that kind of electronic
And
communication.
that's the value of having regular meetings, because you develop a level of trust. You know what their norms are, so you know when things are trending in a different direction. If you're not meeting regularly, if you're texting one another, that's not a relationship. So you're not going to pick up on that as easily
Right.
in that situation. So yeah,
That's why meeting regularly is so important. Not texting regularly. Sometimes we think that's okay, and it's not. Stephen Ministry is all about meeting face to face for just these instances. We need to have. That's the value of the face to face. It is very important. You can pick up so much.